Hey guys, this is Max Headspace 9mm. And you know, as long as I've been in the gun community, I have been aware, as we all have, that there's this prevailing idea about them coming to take our guns. It's been around a long time. In fact, it's nothing new. It's not new to the Second Amendment. It's not new to us in our generation. It goes back to ancient times. The whole idea of come and take it is probably as old as all of mankind. The right to fight to the death, for the right to fight to the death, is a part of being human. The right to self-defense. But people see the right to self-defense in different ways. We have right now some rhetoric going around from our current president, if he is that, who his stance has been for a very long time, as long as he's been in office that I know of, is that the Second Amendment does not include what he likes to refer to as assault rifles. And there's some others on the liberal side, Beto O'Rourke and Swalwell and people like that, Dianne Feinstein, I mean the list goes on, who love to throw around these words about rounding up firearms. Beto said, yes, we're going to take your AR-15s and AK-47s. It makes them look strong and powerful. And here's the thing we've got to remember. These politicians, and that's what they are, they're career politicians. They make their living pushing paper around and fighting with their words. And they're very effective at using words as weapons. They're able to manipulate people really well. In fact, a lot of that tactic is designed strictly to put us on the offensive, or on the defensive actually. But sometimes it gets a little bit out of hand. Our emotions get riled up, and some people go on the offensive just because of their words. Now that's not self-defense anymore. What we had with the Capitol storming was just that, a bunch of people who were sick and tired of this rhetoric and these politicians using their words as weapons. They kind of let their emotions get out of control. Words can be very powerful weapons. Make no mistake. People make huge fortunes with their words. Barack Obama didn't have any marketable skills other than being very effective with his words and persuasion. So let's really look at this objectively. They keep talking about coming for our guns, and I think what they're doing is they're pushing our buttons. Deep down inside, we are all expecting it to be a SWAT team kicking in our door. That's the image that goes through our mind. But I don't think that's the way they're going to do it. There are too many guns and too many people in this country with guns for that to ever work. Biden would have to get the cooperation of a foreign military to come in and do that on our own soil and take away that many firearms. And we would see that coming a mile away. I just don't think they are going to tear the country apart that much in order to get our firearms. Their ignorance about firearms is kind of a badge of honor for them. You know, they talk about a 30-round magazine assault clip and all this kind of stupid stuff, AR-14s and, you know, all those things. You think that's a mistake? No, not much of what they do is a mistake. They are being willfully ignorant. There's a saying, no one is so blind as he who will not see. And the truth of the matter is, they just don't want to learn about these things that they're writing laws about or trying to. They consider it a badge of honor. Biden considers it beneath him to speak intelligently about the workings, the function, and the purpose, as well as the rights to own a military-styled firearm that he calls an assault rifle or an AR-14. He doesn't want to dignify the discussion with knowledge about the subject because, as he thinks, he has the moral high ground. The less he knows about it, the better, because it's an immorality in his mind. Or that's what he projects anyway. No, I think what's going to happen is they're not going to come kicking in the doors. You'd be too prepared for that. And it would be too costly in human lives, and it would tear this country apart. I really don't think that's the way they're going to do it. No, I think what they're going to do is something that is a lot more akin to what happened in Nazi Germany. You see, and other countries that dabbled in socialism and different kinds of fascism. What they're going to do is they're going to turn brother against brother, neighbor against neighbor, and family member against family member. They're going to vilify the idea of having these things. It may be through false flag events like we've seen in the past. Every time there's a mass shooting, there's always this question about, was that legitimate? Was that an event that was actually perpetrated to push this narrative? Some of them look really fishy, and I bet some of them actually are a false flag event. But whether they are or not, they certainly jump on it really quickly and use it to their advantage with their words. No, I think what they're going to do, and what Biden is actually a master of, he's a master of looking like a moron, but that's a big mistake if you think he is. He's actually lulling you into complacency. Because what he's really good at, he's a scrapper. He's talking right now about coming together and unity and all these great things, but he loves to mix it up with his words. He loves to fight. He loves to debate. And he brings out the sharp knives when he has to. What he's doing right now, and what I think he's going to do when it comes to guns, when it's his time to focus on the subject, I believe he's going to play the old wise grandfather and shame us. He's going to shame us into even wanting such a thing. How could we dare want these evil weapons of death and destruction? How much misery should we stand before you give those horrible things up? And there's a lot of people who know about guns, and they know better. They know that just because we have things that they deem as assault rifles, that doesn't make us killers. That doesn't make us complacent in the crimes of others who use them incorrectly. There's a lot of people that don't know anything about the subject, and they would fall for that manipulation pretty quickly. And then there's a lot of people in the middle who just aren't educated. They could be reasoned with. They could go either way on the subject. They may not have any kind of guns themselves. Maybe they have, self-defense gun at home, but that whole thing about semi-auto assault rifles, that's just beyond it for them. The secret to all of this is we got to keep our cool. If we keep giving them ammunition to shoot back at us, like this Capitol riot that happened, and a lot of these militias and things that use all of these angry words, parade around with their weapons out on full display, they're going to turn that whole thing into, you're threatening us. Don't doubt me. They're going to do it. They're going to do everything in their power to make what we construe as free exercise of our rights into threats and us preparing for something. And we have to be stopped. Realize they have the full force of government on their side, which means our tax dollars to use against us. They have the ability to write laws, and they have the media, as well as Hollywood. And they've been using these actors and singers and dancers and entertainers for a long, long time to distract us away from the real issues of life. And then, when called upon to give their opinion about some political topic of the day, they always seem to have a liberal stance on it. Is there any doubt that that's orchestrated? It's too obvious. The media is propaganda now in our country. I have to find out news about our country from media in other countries to get a clear, unbiased report of what's really going on. And as soon as Fox News got sold to a liberal owner, all of a sudden its agenda changed. How interesting. Now, don't doubt me at all. They have got a lot of things that involve using words as weapons on their side. And they're going to come hard and attack us with words over and over and over again until we may not even realize why we want these assault rifles. Be prepared for this, because it's coming. It's just going to keep on going, drip, 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 just like a water torture. That's the way they work, and they can do that. They have the ability, they have the wherewithal. Everything they need is in place to do it, and that's the method they're going to use. We've got to be prepared. We've got to know what we stand for, and we cannot let them manipulate us or agitate us or push us into a position where we feel like we need to fight in an unorganized, unorchestrated, chaotic, emotional way. We cannot afford to keep making that mistake. They've got too many resources on their side. But if we stand firm with logic, knowing what we know, and remember, one of the greatest things we can know, one of the greatest techniques from the art of war, one of the ones that comes to mind the most readily to me, is know your enemy, study him, understand him, and you can win the battle and defeat him without firing a single shot. We have to know the resources that they have and the resources they're likely to use against us, and we have to be prepared for those. This is a mind game. They don't want to take our guns by kicking in our door and having a shootout. No. If they take your guns, it'll be because you handed them over. That's the only way they'll be able to do it. They do know, and it can be argued, that the Second Amendment finishes with a very powerful line, an unmistakable line in the sand: shall not be infringed. The rights of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And they'll talk about doing it. They'll talk about it over and over again. But they can't. Not unless you let them. Now you might say, well, what about other nations? Australia, UK, Canada. Well, they didn't have a Second Amendment. And then you might say, well, what about states? We have some of the states in our country who've gone that way. Yes, we do. We have some disgraceful examples of states that do not stand up for people's rights to keep and bear arms. I moved away from California a long time ago. It's a whole lot worse now than it was when I left. Yes, it can happen state by state. What they cannot do federally, they can do state by state. If you have a governor and a legislature that is heavily liberal, then your gun rights will be up for debate. Stand firm on the idea of opposing mail-in balloting. I live in Oregon. Years ago, when I moved here, this state was largely balanced. It was fairly conservative. Ever since we went to mail-in balloting and mail-in voting, our state has been deep blue. Very liberal. Some of the most liberal policies in the nation are being considered in our state, and look at what's happening to Portland, Oregon. We just keep putting up with looting, burning, and destruction night after night after night in our biggest, most populous city. This happens little by little. It's a mind game. And it happens because we give up ground willingly. We need to be level-headed, and we in the gun community need to stop fighting each other. I get 2/3 to 3/4 of the comments on my channel pretty positive, encouraging, sharing information, which is the whole point of this. But some of them are just mean-spirited. I understand if people disagree, and I want to hear your argument, but don't make personal attacks. We need each other. We have got to communicate positively if we are going to share information and accomplish anything here. And don't forget, the Democrat Party is deeply fractured. Joe Biden has got a world of trouble on his plate. He put a noose around his own neck, tied his own hands behind his back, and seated himself on the back of a rearing, snorting stallion. I would not want to be in his shoes. Those on the far left are pushing him hard because he made promises to them that he would take up all these radical agendas that they wanted Bernie to take care of for them. He said, I'll do it. For the most part, he said he'd go right along with what they proposed. And then he's got the blue dog Democrats on the other end of the spectrum who aren't going to go for that sort of thing either, nor will most of the country. So, things aren't as bleak as they appear. The Democrats are going to be fighting amongst themselves now. They don't have Donald Trump to hate anymore. They're looking for new targets. And they're going to be fighting each other, and they're going to be using words to attack us. And we've got to look like the level-headed, cool ones in the bunch, or we're going to lose. So don't get dragged into a battle of words. Stand strong in your convictions, know what you believe, and be sensible. And remember, the only way they will take away our Second Amendment rights is if we willingly give them up. This is Max Headspace 9mm. Have a good one.